right. What's happening? Hello, interwebs. I hope you are all doing well, and welcome to my review of the latest 2 episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And I say the latest 2 because, as you may have noticed, or perhaps you didn't because you were out celebrating Hanukkah or Christmas or New Year's or whatever it is that you're doing besides being stuck on the internet like some people may be. But I didn't review last week's episode because I was in the midst of moving. And in fact, still in the midst of moving because my life is just really hectic right now, and I'm behind on so much work, and I'm going mildly up a wall at the moment. But regardless, things are going along well. As you may see here, I actually have a whole brand new set. Still a work in progress. Obviously, the lighting makes me look like a ghoul at the moment, and things are kind of all mishmashed all over the place. In fact, quite frankly, there's a bazillion boxes right off screen, like quite literally within arm's reach. I got a boxed up Jakar from Babylon 5, and this is Jessie. I have an O'Brien as well. But a Jessie doll stuck in a hellish plastic prison. So like everything's a mess at the moment, and my life is a mess at the moment. But I did not want to go 2 weeks without missing a review, so here you go. But yeah, let me know what you think about this background and backdrop and everything. I'm kind of still working on it. Like I said, I even think there's some Neil Gaiman stuff floating around in here that I have complicated feelings about for obvious reasons, so we'll work it all out. There'll be some much more fun lights and stuff. But yeah, that's where we're at right now in my hectic life. But regardless, you didn't come here to hear me rant about all of that. Let's talk about the latest 2 episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I will say last week's episode was kind of a good one for me to miss. Not that it was necessarily bad, but I honestly didn't have a ton to say about it. On the Silvo side of things, where he was off on the ship getting caught by the pirates, it was a good scene where we sort of got him sort of convincing the crew to follow his plan and go to Ad-Atten, but it was kind of one where we knew it was going to happen, like he had to kind of redirect things to go to Ad-Atten and deal with the fact that he was on the outs from his crew. I thought Jude Law delivered it with enough gravitas, which, by the way, the only other movie that I've really had time to watch while I was moving recently was the movie The Order that came out last year, where Jude Law plays an FBI agent chasing white supremacists, which is just a vastly different energy than this. So I was just sort of like, wow, Jude Law is a versatile actor. He's doing his thing. So that just an aside there. But yeah, he's serviceable. He's doing good in these scenes, but it's kind of an easy A to B connection. The part that I thought was stronger was everything with the kids, especially the discussion on disability with KB. I thought there was a really good focus on something that you don't often see within discussions of disability within the mainstream, especially within something like Star Wars, which is like people with disability can't always keep up or do the same things as everybody else. Like often when we have disability representation, and I'm not disabled, at least in the ways that people would sort of think about like physical disability, but often when we see that representation, it's a lot of like the stigma around disability, where there's sort of like the like looking down on people with disability. But I actually liked that here, the disability, especially focusing on where kids think about disability, which was the fact that like the kid who didn't have disability, Fern, just sort of assumes that her friend can do everything that she can with, and that feels like it's a progressive thing of like, oh yeah, my disabled friend, I don't view her any less than she can do everything I can do, but actually that you can't always. And I thought that was like a really kind of nuanced take that we don't often see, especially when it comes to kids' representations of disability. So like solid work there on that front. There was a little bit of stuff that I was sort of like, the KB having to apologize to her friend, saying, I'm sorry to you as well, that I didn't articulate my boundaries. Like, yes, there's a bit of like things like, yeah, you should communicate your boundaries to your friends, but it felt weird that it was sort of like put on the same level of like, we both need to apologize to each other for these things, whereas I would think that Fern would be the one who needs to sort of like learn that lesson a little bit more. That was a little bit of like, not so sure I love that, but on the whole, I thought it was really good. And then the rest of the stuff with the episode where they faced off against the giant crab monster, typical Star Wars nonsense. Thought it was fun, like the ship like losing its armor and getting all sleek and sexy. Reminds me of like a prequel Jedi Starfighter. So anything that reminds me of my sleek, sexy prequel babies, I'm here for. So that was last week's episode. Solid enough, but like in like a good disability representation, but not anything to like write home about on this sort of the grand scale. This week's episode, however, was much more of a moving the plot forward episode. And it kind of saddens me that we're already at the penultimate episode of the show, because it's like, oh man, there could have been so much more adventures with these kids. I could have seen something more week to week, kind of like as I've been comparing throughout the season to Star Trek Prodigy. Like, I feel like there was a much more episodic show in here that you could have gone with. That being said, I did sort of have this realization as we sort of get into the finale here, going into the final few episodes, which was like, it was interesting to me that this show, while I did compare it a lot to Star Trek Prodigy, and I think there's a lot of like to compare in that structure, this show definitely was taking a different tact than Prodigy, because, you know, Prodigy was this show, if you watched it, that was very much about teaching kids who have not seen Star Trek about the world of Star Trek, and in fact using characters who were coded as very Star Warsian style characters in that show, about like what the Star Trek universe is that's distinct from other sci-fi, and I really liked Prodigy for that. Whereas Skeleton Crew honestly doesn't waste much time like doing the teaching you about the Star Wars universe. In fact, a lot of the spaces that we entered into in these episodes are very like unique and specific, and not even necessarily Star Warsian, though they have Star Warsian elements, and also some like Indiana Jones-esque elements too. It was just sort of interesting to me that this show like sort of takes as a granted, like, yeah, kids know Star Wars, it's a ubiquitous sort of cultural thing, we don't need to teach them about it, as compared to something like Star Trek Prodigy. And it kind of leads into what I really enjoyed about this finale episode, is that Jude Law, Silvo, just stays the bad guy. I had kind of anticipated there being a moment where he sort of becomes the good guy, or like there's a greater threat that they have to face, that he sort of steps in and is like, all right, I'm going to protect the kids. But no, this entire episode, he's just a villainous jerk right up until the end, and he steps in to become the ultimate bad guy of the show. And I really, really liked that. I liked the moments of menace when he goes to confront the kids when they take the ship onto the bigger pirate ship, and the Brutus character gets grabbed by the kids, and you know the kids aren't going to really do anything to him, but they're trying to make a play, and Silo just kills Brutus because it benefits him to kill the guy that wants to murder him. And it just, again, this darker turn, clearly does not care about the kids' safety at any point, and just like, yeah, now I know your parents' faces, so I can kill them, so shut up and help me get in there, and sort of be my cover to a degree. And I just like, I really like that, just him staying the bad guy and just having that dark turn, really, really I thought was wonderful. A couple nuances that I found funny though, both in this episode and last episode, we have Brutus continually threaten Silvo with the airlock. And this is me being like a Star Trek-y person and a super nerdy like a space person, but I'm like, why would you have an airlock right off the bridge? Because if you get in a battle and you're pirates, you're getting in battles all the time. Someone just like shoots and nicks that window, you're getting sucked out really quick. Like, it just feels like a structural like a problem to have your airlock right off the bridge. It bugged me. Like, it made sense for the set that they were building and why they would do the story that way, but it bugged me to no end that the airlock was just right off the bridge. Other elements that I liked the parents getting that sort of moment at the beginning of the episode to shoot off the message, and we see what their message is later on. Again, kind of reminding us that they're there. They kind of have these, I like the little snippets of their character that we see and how it sort of has influenced our younger main protagonists. Like, for example, when we see the message, we see the mother of Fern, who is the sort of the aristocratic one. Her like thing that she says to Fern is like, don't worry, you broke, like, we're not going to punish you for breaking the rules. And it sort of goes to her sort of like mindset that is sort of very inundated in being like a manager of the system. It's like, all right, don't worry about the rules. Like, you can see that she's breaking her own code to be able to, because she cares more for her kid than the system at play. And I thought that was really nice, and everyone stayed in character for that. Also, it was just, I mentioned this before, nice to see two lesbian parents in there. Fuck Chris Gore, who whined about it being woke Star Wars, if you follow him on Twitter. Man, Chris Gore really fell off, didn't he? Like, I used to follow him all the time on Attack of the Show back in the G4 days. He's the guy who, like, actually taught me to, like, value director's commentaries on DVDs, weirdly enough. And now he's just, like, a weird homophobe on the internet. It's whatever, it's not a big deal, but it just, I'm like, man, you really became an irrelevant asshole, didn't you? Anywho, that's a nonsense sort of aside, but I was thinking about it. Some other quick things here. I did like 33 standing up for the kids. It felt like a very cathartic moment of him being like, it's close enough. Like, it's not right, but it's got the gist of it. I loved that moment. It was good, like, yeah, 33 does actually care about the kids. I thought his characterization throughout the show was really solid. If you all have followed me throughout my Star Wars reviews on this channel, y'all know I'm actually a really big fan of droids. My personal, if I ever got to write a Star Wars story, it would be centered on droids and finally having a droid rebellion because they need to, fight back against their oppressors. But anyway, Solo is a problem. That's a whole movie that we can discuss on a different day. But I love my droids very, very much. And 33 was no exception to that. And I loved his characterization throughout the show of getting to, clearly, following the pirate code, but also have an underlying caring for the kids. So he's, able to resist some of his programming or sort of, play into some of his programming in order to help the kids in this final moment was really, really nice. I'm a little sad he gets his head cut off, but it was a cool moment where Silvo uses the lightsaber. That was a pretty badass kick-ass scene there, but I am sad that he gets murdered at the end. Hopefully we'll still have a moment at the end where we see that his skull is still alive, or KB fixes him or something in the finale. But yeah, he might be gone for good, which would be sad, because again, I love my droids, and screw you, Star Wars, for treating them as disposable. I see you. I see you. The end of the episode was great. I am surprised that we didn't get to see the supervisor, that the end climax was Silvo getting to the vault and there being a ton of money that he is excited to just have pour all over him. A bit funny that I honestly was laughing when the Republic credits were falling all over him. But yeah, I thought that, okay, set the stakes. He's gonna go after the parents. He has the lightsaber, kind of dangerous moment. But I'm actually surprised that the cliffhanger was left off there and not with a reveal of the supervisor or something, because it does feel like they're setting up the supervisor to be either Captain Renner, the original captain of the ship that landed on At-Aten, he sort of took over without anyone really knowing, and just became the mysterious man behind the curtain, or it's his first mate, because there was that reference in, I think, 2 episodes ago where his first mate apparently killed Tack Renard while they were going down to At-Aten. So maybe it's the first mate of Tack Renard. I don't know. Either would work. I don't I'm not particularly it's better one way or the other. It's either would work fine. But I'm just surprised we didn't get that reveal here. Because it presumably will get it in the next episode. Or maybe the supervisor is irrelevant, which honestly I think would be kind of fine. It feels like a superfluous detail at this point. It'd be and here's this guy. So, honestly, there's a part of me that's we don't need that reveal, but it does also feel like a dangling thing that's there of we keep hearing reference to the supervisor that we haven't gotten to see yet. So we'll see ultimately where that shakes out. But yeah, these are, again, 2 solid episodes. I think where I'm landing on this show, we'll see how it all shakes out in the finale. But I think that this was probably one of the stronger live-action Star Wars series that we've gotten, and or aside. I mean, I could see people making arguments for something like Mandalorian or even Ahsoka. But I and I don't think the Skeleton Crew is topping away the best show ever. I think it's just a solid, fun kids show set in the Star Wars universe. But unfortunately, that sort of speaks to the mixed reception of the rest of the Star Wars show, again, and or aside. So yeah, I think this is a solid, fun show. I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to the finale. There's been talk of maybe further seasons, but it does sound as if the creators did intend this to be one single mini-series, which I'm glad for. I don't want to necessarily have a cliffhanger be hey, if we want to tell more stories with these kids in this little segment of the Star Wars universe, we can, but we don't necessarily need to, and I think that that's kind of the best way to go about something like this, especially since the kids will probably age up. We don't have a weird Stranger Things kind of moment here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what that finale is going to bring. But what did you all think? I'd love to hear all your thoughts. What do you think of my set? Like I said, I'll be working on it. I'll be adding more lights. It'll be I'll look less a pale ghost on the next, hopefully the next shoot. We'll see how far along I get in unpacking over the next few days, because I am behind. I'm both unpacking and a lot of work, especially for my main channel. So we'll see where I get. Give me a little bit of grace over the next few weeks. But I'd love your thoughts on where I am at the moment. I'll sort of duck down so you can get a quick look at what's going on there. And love y'all, and live long and prosper.